Hi guys, this is Tina. Welcome back to my channel. So I am here for our first episode of the mass making. Now I have a confession to make. This I have panicked and tried to do a more exciting first episode because I had so many people so kindly say that they would join me for you know, the first episode. And I was just so worried that you were going to find it so boring because I was just making kind of fold out flips. So I'm going to move that and I will show that next Tuesday. But I thought we'd make something slightly more exciting perhaps for the first episode, you know, because otherwise there's no way people are going to tune in after, you know, after this first one. So what we're going to do is make these little, you know, just... well, I guess coin envelopes they would be called, or little wage packets. I'm not quite sure what the correct terminology is for them, but we're going to just make these in bulk. So that's that. It's just an example to show you the types of things that we can do. I have brought along obviously a whole bunch of scraps and various different papers. And I've also brought along some 8x8 paper pads that, you know, I've had in my stash for the longest time and, you know, just probably not really going to use. So again, just thought, you know, get them out and, you know, start using them. And obviously I have scraps of different sizes, and I also have some full A4 sheets. Oops, move this out of the way. Some full A4 sheets and things. You know, that I've either misprinted or perhaps used in things, you know, and, you know, I've finished that journal, so I maybe won't really use it again. So, you know, we're just going to get cracking straight away. So how I thought I would do the series is obviously start by doing, you know, a tutorial for those people who maybe don't know how to make the item that we're going to make. And then obviously I will be quiet. Well, I won't be quiet, but, you know, I will then obviously be quiet about what we're making and, you know, let you all do your own thing. So what you're going to need for this particular episode is obviously your glue, your scissors, you know, possibly your distress ink, maybe your corner rounder if you wanted to round the corners, and obviously a whole bunch of scraps or 12x12 paper sheets, A4 paper sheets, you know, that you've kind of got just spilled over, left over from things, maybe misprinted, you know, when your ink cartridge is running out, things like that. Anything that you've just got that, you know, you don't know really now what to do with, you can bring along and make things. Because obviously, you know, something like this, you can just make teeny ones. You know, they don't have to be massive. So, you know, any size will do, any papers will do, you know, anything at all. So I have obviously got here, this is some not A4, 12x12 paper. As you can see, I have obviously used it in the past. I'm not sure whether I actually have coffee dyed this or whether this was just in with some coffee dyeing things. Obviously you can see I've spilt coffee on it, certainly. So I'm just going to cut this down. And then all I'm going to do is get my basic, you know, sized piece that I want to have. So I'm just going to fold it in here and then, you know, probably, maybe slightly wider than that, probably about that. So just fold it in like that. And then I'm just going to trim it down here because obviously it's quite, you know, overhanging on the, you know, what would effectively be the joining part. And then I'm just going to trim it off at the bottom to tidy it up. And then all I like to do, you know, if I'm making these, is snip it on each corner like that. And then I take these pieces, I take these pieces and I just then trim like that. And then just, you know, fold this bit over. So the reason that I've trimmed those innards is just so this isn't so bulky to actually, you know, press this down and stick this down. So I'm just wondering whether I've got my bone folder anywhere. Well, I know it is in that pot, but I can't see it now, so I will leave it. I will just use my scissors just because I don't want to just take up everybody's time looking for things. So I'm just going to trim up, you know, the back so it's just equally matched. And then obviously you're just going to glue it together. Now I just run a bit of glue down the edge of the piece that will be inside, and a bit of glue, you know, down the edge of the piece that will be on the outside. Stick that down and then just glue the bottom flap up like that. Okay. And then you may want to obviously punch your little thumb holes in. Now it's completely up to you. Obviously on this one I have punched a thumb hole throughout, you know, both sides, and then I made a matching journaling card. So, you know, completely up to you whether you want to go through both sides or whether you just want to do it, you know, through one side. I can't really see now whether that's in the middle. So that's my thumb hole there. I'll just bin these pieces. Now, what I thought that I'm going to probably do for these mass making sessions is I will mass make the item. I'm just going to check that I am actually in frame. Right, I'm just going to try and mass make the item, but I probably am not going to decorate them because obviously, you know, once they're decorated, I feel it would be restricting then the journals that they could go into. You know, if I were, say, to put, you know, well, the flowers that I've just put on there, or if I put this clock on there, I'm then quite restricted because I wouldn't then want to put this in, say, a pink themed journal. Whereas if I leave it like this, I could effectively, you know, quite disguise this and possibly use it, you know, in a different coloured journal. So what I will do instead is I'm going to do, excuse me while I'm just dusting off this. So what I thought I would do instead is just prepare it, but in the most basic of ways, so as it's got the most versatility, you know, for the most projects. So I'm just going to keep that in my glue because my glue is not brilliant. I mean, unless of course I'm going to stick quite neutrally embellishments, and then, you know, it would be fine. So I'm just going to ink around this with a bit of you know, distress ink like that. So it's kind of vintaged up. I'll do both sides because obviously, you know, I might want to have this as a floating piece or possibly, you know, tucked into a tuck spot or something. So I'm just going to leave it like that. Obviously, you know, you might want to just stamp some corners or, you know, stamp some patterns, or as I say, you know, you may want to actually decorate yours up. You know, completely your choice how you want to tailor your bulk making. For me personally, you know, I'm just trying to get some pieces ready made that are then giving me the biggest flexibility and versatility, you know, for the biggest amount of journals. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, this piece now, that's done with regards to, you know, building my supplies. So I'm just going to work my way through basically, you know, the stash that I've just got here to my side. So obviously, as you can see, you know, this is just some scrapbook paper. I mean, literally a scrap, you know, from some 12 by 12. Just going to trim that down. And, you know, I mean, it doesn't really matter, I don't think, which end your seam is on. I mean, obviously, if you noticed, you know, my other piece, the seam, the joining part, was in the middle. This piece is to the side. You know, I don't think it matters, but, you know, I'm no expert, and just do whatever takes your fancy at the time, you know. you know, and it maybe just do whatever suits your scraps that you're using or your piece of paper that you're using. You know, if you've got a piece of pattern on your paper that you want to either hide, you know, or make this focal point, you know, the centre piece, will depend possibly on how you fold your piece. So, you know, just have a bit of flexibility kind of with, you know, how you're going to actually make your pieces. So that's all I'm doing, and then obviously just going to glue this down. You know, and you don't always have to have a thumb hole. Again, you know, vary it to suit how you want yours to be. You know, I quite like the thumb holes, but I'm not saying that you'd always necessarily want one. But I do quite like them. So, you know, that's quite a nice thing to do. So that's that one. And again, I will just put the thumb holes in. Oops. Will I say that? If I can actually get that threaded through. Let me just check. Okay. Oh gosh, that was pathetic, wasn't it? Absolutely pathetic. So let me come further down in that. Okay, so that's a bit better. Now obviously, because this is brown, I'm not going to bother inking that up. So that's another one. So as I say, I have actually done this you know, as a kind of panic. Oh my gosh, lots of people are keen to do this series, so I'd best make a little bit more of an interesting first episode. So, you know, when you tune in kind of next time, you will notice that I've changed now what I'm doing slightly, in that by about, I don't know, the second or third episode, I decided to start actually, you know, bulk making and then just decorating one final one each time, just so that it's slightly more interesting to watch. So obviously, because I've now adopted that approach, I will decorate one today as well, you know, so that we have a bit of fun as well as the bulk making tedious process, you know. But as I say, next week I will probably show episode 1, what was supposed to be episode 1, in which case, you know, it's going to not have a decorated piece at the end, and I don't think possibly episode 2 does either. So that was something that I decided to do, you know, once I was filming ahead. You know, I thought, actually, I think these would be better if I then just did decorate one or something, you know, to make it a bit more interesting, rather than completely just bulk making, you know, something which just would be, you know, so boring to watch. So little teeny one. So again, just demonstrating that, you know, your scraps really can be any size, you know, just because, you know, you've got only tiny pieces doesn't mean that you can't use them. You know, the same if I just pull in here, I've got some 8x8 paper pads. So I'm just going to go through. I've got this one, for instance. Now, I've had this in my stash for the longest time. I can't even tell you how long. It's just been, yeah, forever. So I'll probably just cut this down here like that, and then I'll just fold this in. Oops, just knock them down. That's a good start. So, and this one, because it's got quite a lot of green on it, what I can do is obviously alter where I'm folding it, so I hide the green. And then to me, that's now going to be much more usable in a bigger variety of journals, because obviously if I had that limey green colour, you know, that maybe to me would make it not particularly versatile to put in a whole bunch of journals, where now it's, you know, looking much more, you know, like it's going to fit with lots of different ones. So again, just trim those down. Oops. and then take this in. Okay, looking good. So we just glue that down. Oops. My glue's just not really wanting to play today. Okay. So we'll glue that down. And then what I will probably do, because obviously this was an 8x8 sheet, you know, it's tempting now to just make another one, another small one, because obviously, you know, that would eliminate that entire piece of paper. But I'm not going to do that. The reason being is then if I use this in a journal somewhere, it would be quite nice to have used the other one, you know, the other small piece that I have left over for a different type of item, because then, oh, I've done that again, look, made a pathetically small thumb hole. Because then I would have a couple of things in the same paper line that would then tie the journal together better. So I'm going to keep that for another mass making item, you know, that then I would probably pull those two items into, you know, the same journal. And again, I'm just going to vintage this up because, I mean, obviously, as you can see, this was quite a, you know, modern style looking piece of paper. So if I just, you know, grunge that up a little bit, like that. Okay, so we'll just vintage that up. So I might come back and decorate this one, I think, once we've made a few more pieces, because it looks like a challenging one. So maybe I'll come back and do that one. Right, so I've done 4 so far. So I'm going to stop rambling on quite so much, because obviously, you know, we've talked about what we're doing now till we're blue in the face. So again, here I've just got some book page. So I'm just going to cut down here. Like that. And I will just make a baby one. So again, just fold that in like, oops, like that. And then perhaps we'll have it this sort of size, like that. And again, I'm just going to just cut that down there. So, you know, just using some book page. And then just trim that down. Yes, so the reason I felt the need to do this was because, you know, I was slightly surprised, I suppose, at how many people said, oh yes, I'm going to join you for the workshops, you know. And so I quickly, you know, re-watched my video that I had obviously filmed ahead for the mass making episode 1. And I just thought, oh no, you know, people are sounding like they're really keen and excited. They are going to be so gutted, because all I'm doing is effectively folding paper. And I didn't decorate one or anything in that first couple of episodes. So I just thought, oh no, because obviously there's going to be weeks where we're making more exciting items than others. You know, some weeks we may make things that you find exciting. Some weeks they might be, you know, something that you find pretty dull. You know, it will just vary. But I thought, well, if we start off with something that's quite basic and boring, no one's even going to tune in for, you know, other weeks when things might get more exciting. So I just wanted to give myself a bit of a better chance of, you know, getting views on future episodes. So I thought, let's do another one, you know, where we're making something slightly more interesting, and then hopefully, you know, it won't put people off the following time. Right, I've got this atlas page here. Now, this I have coffee dyed, but it's very fragile, as you can see, and it's really falling apart. So I'm just going to double it over. I'm just trying to decide which page I think is nicer colourings. Actually, I think this page maybe. So let's just try and line it up at the edge like that. Okay. For a moment I thought, oh, that's going to be upside down, but it's not, so that's fine. So if we tip that in there, just going to trim it down so as I can see roughly how tall this is going to be, because you know, we don't want it to be like a really odd shaped piece. So possibly about here would be quite good. So we just cut that down here like that. And then I'm just going to glue this all together because of, because obviously, you know, it is very fragile. And I'm just going to focus a little bit extra, you know, so as I get quite a good coating of glue where I'm going to put thumb holes. Or I guess, you know, perhaps the more sensible thing would be don't put thumb holes, you know. If in doubt, don't put thumb holes in. But just in case we do, I've just put lots of glue there so it's, you know, quite plentiful. So we'll just glue that together. Again, I just spread that glue with my card like that. And then just take that in like that. Oops. About here, I think. Okay. So I'm going to then just chop the corners off like that. So yeah, I mean, going back to obviously this mass making, which I know I'm just droning on and on and on, repeating myself now, but you know, I just think basically, as I say, you know, some weeks it's going to be a more interesting item than others. I mean, you know, I have got weeks where we're going to do some Matchbox books. I've got weeks where we're going to do different style pockets. I've got the, you know, paper clips, things like that. So, you know, we have got a whole bunch of different items that we can do. And, you know, those are just a couple of videos that I've actually filmed ahead already. There's a whole list on my, you know, my notes of other ideas and things that we can do. So, you know, rest assured, we are not going to have a shortage of items to do. There are tons and tons of things that we can be doing. So that's those. Now, what else did I have here? Let me just have a look through my scraps packet. Now, a lot of this is card in there. So I think what I would do is use some book pages and things that I actually also dug out for this project. So got some here, and I have actually already kind of glued these a little bit together. I'm not going to put a thumb hole in this perhaps, or certainly if I am, I will do it a bit later once it's, you know, more thoroughly dried. So this one here, for instance, we could just, you know, fold that in like that, fold that in like that. As I say, I have already doubled the thickness of this, so it's already quite robust, you know, it's not flimsy because I've already, you know, glued it together and doubled it over. So there is a program here called Blue Peter. So, you know, anyone in England would know what I was talking about. I don't know whether it was ever shown anywhere else or anything. I don't know. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, just please ignore me. But if you're here in England and you do know, just say, you know, here's one that I made earlier with regards to obviously gluing the pages together. I'm just going around the edge because obviously I just held them together just loosely in the middle so far. So I'll just go around the edges, whoops, around the edges, just gluing those down like that. Okay. And then I'll just glue this down. Yeah, I mean, the ones that I filmed ahead, it's quite shocking how quickly you know, you can actually manage to make things when you're doing this mass making. But having said that, it is also quite shocking how quickly you use things, because I happen to be watching a Roxy Creations, you know, Rachel's videos, and she obviously did that 100-day project, and she did amazing. I can't believe she actually lasted the whole 100 days. She must have been exhausted by the end of it. But I happened to notice she did another video the other day, and she said she was already, you know, running out of the things, you know, her supplies that she had been making. So despite all those, you know, 100 days, she's already running low. So here's some more book pages that are from another book, which I've just picked up out of that bunch of stash that I'd brought along. So again, you know, this is again different style of font and things like that. So again, as you can see, it's quite tall, so we may want to cut it down so as it has less white and more text, or we may want to keep the white. So let's just have a look. Perhaps I'll cut it down. Yeah, she said she was already running out of stash. So, and she had been making things for 100 days. Now, I don't know, obviously, how many journals she's made, you know, since she's finished the 100-day project. But, you know, let's face it, she can't have made that many, I'm sure. So if you're watching this, Rachel, you know, I'd be intrigued to know, because, you know, that's all those days worth of journals, and you've already, you know, used your supplies, or, you know, coming to the end anyway, you're beginning to have used your supplies. So, you know, I guess my point is, although this seems like, oh, wow, you know, we're going to have so many things to work with, I think what I'm trying to say is, you know, although it seems to me now, sat here thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not going to know myself, I'm going to have all these supplies to use, you know, I think what I'm trying to say is it clearly doesn't make, you know, or last that long. It's obviously an ongoing thing, which is why I'm thinking we'll do these weekly workshops every week, you know, ongoing. Because despite having all those supplies, you know, as soon as you come to make a couple of journals, you're going to, you know, dig in and use a fair few. You know, so, yeah, I think although it sounds, you know, like, wow, who would need all of those? I actually think, you know, it's quite surprising how quickly you would use them up. So, right. And again, that comes back to the hoarding thing, because, you know, will I then go on to just hoard all of these supplies? Because, you know, I am a bit inclined to do that, I must be honest. You know, when we've talked about it before, and if it's like your favourite paper or something like that, you know, instead of just rationally thinking, well, I could just rebuy it, you know, or even worse, printable, I could just reprint it. Nope, instead I find myself not wanting to use it. So I don't know whether I will be like that with this mass making, in that, you know, when I get down to my last one or two, say, of these coin envelopes, that then I'll start thinking, oh, I don't want to use that. You know, is that going to be how this works? Even hoarding the stuff that I've mass made in order to use. Right, let me check now what the time is. So, oh, 28 minutes. So actually not too bad. We are not doing too badly at all. So let's see how many we've made. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've made 8. Let's try and make a couple more, because, you know, then I'd feel really like we've, you know, achieved quite a lot. So just having a look now on my desk, because my desk has endless amounts of rubbish. Right, I've got this green, so I think I will make one from this. So this was just tucked in at the back of my desk. Well, not at the back, no, not at the back. Just in one of the many piles of stuff. And as you can see, obviously it's just an offcut from some 12 by 12 paper. So again, I'll just fold that over. Oh, I'm such a sucker for pretty papers. I don't know what's wrong with me. I love pretty papers, you know, really do love them. And I just think they can really just make a journal, can't they? Or make any project, to be fair. You know, a journal, a scrapbook, a card, you know, anything really. So definitely I love them. There we go. Now in the ones that I've filmed ahead so far, I think I was averaging mostly around 12, I think, that I was managing to make in the time. However, they did kind of extend from, they started out at half an hour, sort of strictly half an hour really, and they ended up being a bit longer. So I said in the trailer they're going to be anywhere between half an hour and 1 hour. So I'm going to try and do a mixture, because I know that obviously, I mean, an hour is a lot out of people's time, isn't it? So, you know, although I'm hoping that this is going to prove a very productive hour for everybody every week, you know, boring but a productive one, you know, in that we're going to be not only using some of our stash and our book pages and our paper packs and all those kinds of things, you know, or all of our things, but we're also going to be building our supplies. But, you know, I do realise that an hour is actually, you know, quite a lengthy amount of time, isn't it? You know, quite a large chunk of time. Right, we'll put a thumb hole in that one. Oops. Okay, so I'm just going to go for one more today, because with that in mind, I'm going to try not to go quite so lengthy today in the first one. So again, I'm just checking on my desk what else I've got sat here. So, right, I've got some of this. So I had quite a lot of this paper, because I actually did buy this paper pack twice because I loved it so much. So I'm just going to do one in this. And this is double-sided, as you can see. So, you know, I can just decide whether to have it on the striped side or the sheet music side. I think either is, you know, absolutely fine and would be useful, because I think some would go with, you know, one journal and some would go with another. I'm going to go for the sheet music side though today. So yeah, I know that I am repeating myself endlessly, and that in itself I'm sure must be really irritating, but I just want to make sure that everyone's aware that next week's workshop will be, you know, technically I will be talking about it in terms of, oh, episode 1. Obviously this is now episode 1. So, you know, ignore that I'm saying that. And obviously that will follow that I'll be calling the next episode episode 2 and so on, because obviously until I've caught up, you know, they're going to be out of sync number wise. And that's purely because, yeah, I just in my moment of panic thought, oh my gosh, you know, I wish I had one where I decorated a piece or did something a little bit more exciting. So I just, yeah, really wanted to upgrade. I'm not saying that this has been anything really exciting either, but at least I've used glue in this one, whereas the other one was purely kind of more folds, you know, rather than gluing or anything. And as I say, at that point I hadn't added the decorating one piece either, so, you know, hopefully this is a little bit more fun. Right, that's my pieces. Now checking the time, 33 minutes, so all good. So which one did I say? I said this one. So I'm just going to ink this one slightly. Now I'm only doing this so that, again, I've got less to do when I kind of pull out my ready-made supplies. So, you know, this is all personal preference. I mean, you guys may decide that as building your supplies, you will have yours ready, decorated and everything. You know, personally, I think I'm more inclined to use the pieces if they're not decorated already, because you know, I just know what I'm like, and I will just then think, oh no, it doesn't match, you know, everything else in the journal. So for me, I just think I'm better off probably not decorating them. So, you know, that's where I'm coming from with that. So, right, enough said now. So I'm going to stop waffling. Let's get decorating a little bit. So I'm just taking a little bit of sheet music. I don't know whether this is going to go, but it was just something that happened to be laying around on my desk. We're just, you know, I'm just using things that are just on the desk. I'm not pulling anything else. I'm being strict with myself and, you know, trying my best to just use items that are here. I mean, as I always say, you know, thankfully for me, I've got a whole desk full of stuff because it's like the messiest desk ever. So, you know, it's not like I'm struggling for things to use. I really have a lot of stuff here. So, you know, if these aren't the pieces, it's fine. I've got a ton of other stuff all buried amongst all the paper. So I will easily be able to find something that does go. So I needn't worry too much. But again, you know, I was thinking, oh, perhaps I'll, you know, clear my desk a little bit by doing this, but it's not worked so far. Not worked at all. But hey, it's early days, you know. I mean, if these do actually kind of go down all right, even when people, once they've all seen how boring they are, then, you know, maybe by this time next year, maybe my desk will start to be emptying out a little bit. Right, might have to glue a couple of bits down on here because otherwise I'm at risk of obviously, you know, keep just overthinking this. And I'm trying to just do this in a timely, you know, for the first episode. So there we go. Right. Pop that there. So I quite like that. So just again, whoops. Pop this doily down, and this doily again, it was just laying around on my desk, just in amongst the desk ephemera there. So didn't have to go hunting anything down or anything. It was just there, just waiting to be used. Right. So put that there. It's nice, isn't it? And then I've also got fabric and everything on this desk, so needn't worry about that. Now, just wondering whether we could pop the postage stamp. This is a stamped postage stamp, it's not even a real one. Which again, the irony, you know, I've got all those vintage stamps, and what do? I stamp more stamps. To be fair, I stamped this a long time ago. Hence it's still floating about on my desk, you know. But yeah, it is, you know, there is something slightly ironic about that, isn't there? That as if I didn't have enough stamps, I've actually stamped more. Yeah. Just wondering. So again, just having a look to see whether I want to go round the back of this as well. So let's glue that postage stamp on. I'll just pop that down like that. And we'll just pop this one down like that. Okay, and then take my lace. Now you see, if I put it there, I'm just covering up the doily, which is, you know, then pretty pointless having it on there, isn't it? So I think I'll have it at the top. Now, I'm not going to go around the back because that's just silly, isn't it? Yeah, there's no need to go around the back. So I'm just going to trim off that header. And I've done this all the time lately, trimmed the header off of this piece of lace, this particular, you know, design. You know, sometimes I don't mind the that header row, and sometimes I do, and it just seems that lately I've always minded. But you know, different pieces, you know, they seem to warrant different things, don't they? So, you know, I think it just goes to show you can never guarantee what you're going to want. So there we go. So looking really pretty now, and then of course, you know, it wouldn't be complete without a little bit of trim. So again, I mean, I've just got some pearls here actually, which are really pretty. So, and again, they just happen to be, you know, laying around on the desk. So we'll just pop those on there like that. Oh, like that. Really pretty, really, really pretty. And then could have a little button, although it looks quite large now. And then, you know, if you wanted to, obviously I'm not going to do this because, you know, I'm trying to keep these a little bit shorter. But if you wanted to, you could then make a little journaling card to actually, oh, well, we'll just quickly to pop in there. And then it literally, literally is, you know, 100% ready to use in your journal, you know, which is awesome, isn't it? You know, you've got a completely finished piece along with, you know, the matching journaling card and everything. So let me just pop this, oops, like that. Just check that I've trimmed it narrow enough to actually fit in there. Okay. So, and then what I'll do for a bit of continuity there, I will just take, I think, some sheet music. So again, I must have some here because you name it, it's here. So we'll just pop some sheet music just across here, I think. And then, you know, you could even, I'm sure I've got another one of these. These are some lovely stamps that I was gifted by the lovely Laura. So hi Laura, if you're watching and crafting along and maybe, you know, bulk making at the same time, I finally have tucked into your stamps. I'd been hoarding them, again, you know, something else that I've been just hoarding and hoarding. Why am I wanting to hoard everything? I have no idea. So I thought it was high time that I actually started using some things. So I have now started using your lovely stamps. She had sent me very kindly, and I did do a video, it was quite a long time ago, but I did do a video of her lovely Happy Mail, and she'd sent me a whole, you know, one of those plastic, you know, compartment box things full of stamped images. And I love my stamped images, you know, I really do love them, and I love using them, you know, on card stuck on, as opposed to just directly stamped on the piece that I'm using. But subsequently I obviously really liked them so much I haven't been able to bring myself to use them, ironically. So you will be happy to know, Laura, that I finally just, you know, talked some sense into myself and just thought, this is ridiculous, you know. She sent them for you to use. Why are you hoarding stamped images now? You know, just use them. Right, so here, as you can see, I've got the same stamp. So I'm going to ink that up like that, because then, although the paper itself is not matching, the theme is. So again, just going to take a piece of doily, which, you know, it's not actually laying around on my desk, it's on my hooks behind my desk, but I will just use that. So that the journaling card has a similar appearance to the coin envelope. So, oh my gosh, what is going on? Oh, I now can't separate this. Oh, come on. Sometimes blowing them to try and separate them helps, doesn't it? No, not today. Oh, come on. Come on. What's going on? Here we go. Here we go, finally. Right. So, like that. And then, let me see whether I've got some more plain book page. So I'm just going to take some plain book page to back that onto. So it's plain obviously on the back. So just going to glue that. Like that. Come on. Just so as you've got a nice plain back to journal on. So like that. Cut that down. And down here. I'm obviously losing the plot a bit because I've just really made this a little bit small now, I think, but never mind. Never mind. Right. So pop my doily on. Now I've suddenly remembered what I'd meant to do, so I'll just quickly ink it up before I put the doily on. Otherwise my doily is not going to look white anymore. And again, sometimes I don't mind the doily looking stained, and sometimes I do. So you know, again, it's just, you know, how you feel at the time, isn't it? You know, or the journal that you're putting it into. So we'll pop that on there like that, and then we'll put the matching piece in or on the tag. So there we go. Like that. And then, you know, it's up to you. I mean, you could round the corners. I mean, you could round the corners on your coin envelopes too. I don't tend to do that with them, but, you know, again, never say never. And, you know, just, again, what takes your fancy at the time. So just pop that in there, and there's your matching tag with your coin envelope. So right, let me check the time. So we're up to 47 minutes, so not too bad. So we've kept, you know, down from an hour. So I'm going to stop waffling now. So thank you so much for joining me for this, you know, mass making episode. And hopefully see you next week for the second episode, which I will, of course, be referring to as the first episode. Actually, and just before I forget, I just want to mention that I have got something else coming up. It's going to be starting this weekend. I have a preview coming out later on this week of what that's going to be, but hopefully it's going to make up for the fact that this is super boring. I'm hoping that you're going to find the other thing that's going to be running every Saturday something very exciting. So yeah, anyway. So I hope you managed to get some crafting done, use up some, you know, some stash, and build up some supplies. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Thanks then. Bye.